Welcome back to Meghan and Harry Tales, hosted by Adrian, where we don't sip royal tea, we serve it hot, piping and unfiltered. And today's episode? Oh, it's a royal cocktail of nostalgia, emotion, hypocrisy, and just a dash of that classic Windsor awkwardness. So, according to insiders, or more accurately, those mysterious sources who always happen to be close to the palace, Prince William is planning something big to honour the late Princess Diana on what would have been her 64th birthday. That's right. The future king, the man who's been cosplaying as Mr. Duty and Discipline ever since Harry left, is about to give us a heartfelt tribute to Mummy Dearest. And guess what? There's whispering, lightly staged, carefully leaked whispering that this might be the opportunity for Harry and William to put their differences aside and reunite for their mother's sake. Ah yes, because nothing screams, let's fix a years-long emotional fracture, like an event built on press coverage, royal branding and performative grief. Now don't get me wrong, Princess Diana deserves to be honoured, always has, always will. But let's not pretend that the emotional reunion of her sons is as simple as booking a train to Sheffield and shaking hands for the cameras. William will be marking the second anniversary of his homelessness initiative. Homewards, a campaign he claims was inspired by his late mother's compassion. And that's fair. Diana did take her boys to shelters. She did teach them to see the people society tries to ignore. But here's the twist. Only one of her sons seems to have actually followed through on that lesson with action, and that's Harry. Let's talk facts. While William is planning his public tribute, Harry has already lived Diana's values. From founding the Invictus Games to co-creating Centabale, Harry has made it his life's work to uplift the vulnerable. And unlike some others we could name, he didn't need a photo op to do it. So while William uses Diana's name to fuel yet another PR moment, Harry has quietly continued the emotional legacy, the empathy, the courage, the humanity that Diana lived and breathed. Now, there's talk that the brothers might use this occasion to make peace. Maybe. Possibly. Sort of, if the stars align and no one breathes too loudly. But let's be honest, a real reunion requires more than just a shared date on a calendar. It requires accountability, honesty, growth. Three things that are usually in short supply over at the palace. You can't build a bridge with photo ops. And you certainly can't rebuild trust with the same hands that once threw you to the tabloid wolves. Let's not forget William and Charles had multiple chances to stand up for Harry, to support him when the press was viciously attacking Meghan, to listen when he said, "I need help." But what did they do? Silence, indifference, or worse, leaks and briefings to keep their own images clean, and now they're wondering if Harry might attend a Diana tribute. Darling, please. He's been honouring Diana every day by protecting the woman he loves and building a life of purpose. That's more than a statue unveiling or a ribbon cutting could ever say. Let's address the emotional elephant in the room. We all want these brothers to reconcile. Of course we do. They were once the royal dream team, two boys walking behind their mother's coffin, united in grief, bonded by trauma. But somewhere between palace ambition and personal betrayal, that bond snapped. And now it seems William wants a photo-friendly patch job, just enough unity to earn some good headlines without actually confronting the decades of dysfunction that led here in the first place. So when we hear that Diana would want them to be each other's strength, yes, that's true, she absolutely would. But what Diana wouldn't want is for one son to be used as emotional currency for another's image upgrade. And let's talk about Meghan Sussex, shall we? You better believe Diana would have loved her. A woman who speaks up for others, supports women-led businesses, challenges toxic systems. Meghan is everything the monarchy tries to control, and that's why they were terrified of her. But instead of shielding Meghan, they gaslit her, ignored her mental health, fed her to the wolves. And now they want to ask Harry to set aside his differences for the sake of appearances? That's not reconciliation, that's exploitation. Harry doesn't owe anyone a photo, a handshake, or a symbolic hug. What he owes is to himself, his wife, and his kids to protect their peace. And if showing up at a Diana event means stepping back into the lion's den of royal manipulation, then he has every right to say, not today. And here's what no one wants to admit: Harry has already made peace. Not with the palace, but with his past. He's done the therapy. He's written the book. He's told his truth. He has a wife who stands with him, children who know love, and a life that reflects the emotional honesty Diana gave him. William, on the other hand, is still playing the palace game, and that's fine if that's the life he wants. But don't try to drag Harry back into it for the optics of brotherly love. This isn't about whether Harry shows up in Sheffield. It's about whether the institution that broke him is ready to own its part in the story. And frankly, I don't think they are. So let's stop pretending that July 1st will fix years of betrayal. It might be a moment, it might be a step, but it's not a solution. Until the firm learns to value real emotional connection over public perception, nothing's going to change. Harry doesn't need to perform his grief for the cameras. He's already living the values Diana taught him. And Meghan Sussex? She's the one helping him carry that torch fiercely, gracefully, and without a palace to back her. So whether the brothers shake hands or just shake their heads across a crowded room, one thing is clear. Diana's true legacy lives on, not in a royal press release, but in the actions of the son who chose love over protocol. Let's take a long, unblinking look at the man at the top of this royal pyramid, King Charles III, the monarch who now holds the crown, the power, and apparently the mute button when it comes to his own children. Because while the headlines keep telling us that Harry and William's rift is brotherly, let's not ignore the very real, very obvious truth. This family fracture didn't just form out of nowhere, and it certainly wasn't forged in isolation. It happened under the silent watch of the man who could have stopped it all, and that man is King Charles. Now, this is the same king who is reportedly planning his own funeral down to the colour of the drapes, and the exact route his coffin will take from Balmoral, Sandringham, or wherever fate finds him. He's supposedly factoring Harry, Meghan and their children into those plans with the tenderness of a man making amends through death logistics. But hold on, let's rewind. This is the same father who, when Harry reached out, grieving, distressed and vulnerable, stopped answering his calls. The same father who, instead of facilitating peace between his warring sons, chose to hide behind palace walls and let the courtiers handle the fallout. The same man who issued carefully crafted statements about beloved family members while letting the tabloid press feast on his son, his daughter-in-law, and his mixed-race grandchildren like vultures at a state banquet. Charles had every opportunity to be the healer, the father, the man Diana probably hoped he'd grow into once the crown no longer distracted him from his family duties. But instead, what did we get? Silence, distance, and a royal shrug wrapped in tradition. Let's be real, King Charles has shown more urgency organising his posthumous legacy than he ever showed organising a basic family intervention. He's literally drawing up royal death choreography like it's the Queen's Jubilee while his sons can't even look each other in the eye. And we're supposed to applaud him for penciling Harry into a funeral seating chart? Sorry, Your Majesty, but where was that energy when Meghan was suicidal? Where was that concern when Harry was pleading with you to protect his family from the onslaught of racist headlines and palace silence? You can't claim to love your son after he leaves and call it fatherhood. You can't plan a funeral and call it forgiveness. Let's be blunt. Charles didn't just ignore the rift, he institutionalized it. He allowed palace aides to spin narratives that protected the heir while painting the spare as spoiled, angry and ungrateful. He could have called a family meeting, demanded unity, stepped in when things were clearly spiralling, but instead he deferred to the institution, that shape-shifting fortress that always seems to matter more than people. And now the story being sold is that Charles wants Harry at the centre of his family when he dies? Please, why is the king planning funeral guest lists more thoughtfully than he ever planned a sit-down between his sons? It's as if reconciliation is only valuable once it's dressed in mourning clothes and softened by death. As if Charles finally sees the emotional weight of Harry's absence, but only because it might ruin the optics of his final send-off. If you really want your sons united, Charles, do it while you're alive. Make the call, set the table, own your role in this rift and fix it while there's still time. Because true leadership, true love, isn't about how the world sees you when you're gone. It's about what you choose to protect while you're still here. And Harry? He's protecting his peace, his wife, his children, his integrity. He doesn't need a royal invitation to grieve Diana. He does that every time he honours her by refusing to play the palace game. So maybe the real legacy won't be passed through titles, ceremonies or processions, but through Harry's refusal to let history repeat itself, and through Meghan Sussex's strength in helping him break generational silence. Let's talk about the most rigid, absurd and wildly hypocritical performance act happening in the House of Windsor, royal grief management. Because apparently in the monarchy there's a hierarchy not just for titles, but for tears. Take Prince William. He can stand at a podium, invoke Diana's name, and suddenly he's the brave, dignified son carrying on his mother's legacy. The press calls it noble, regal, poised. He wears his grief like a designer suit, tailored, sombre and palatable for the front pages of the Times. But Harry? The moment Harry dares to speak from the heart, whether it's recalling the trauma of walking behind Diana's coffin at age 12, or sharing how Meghan Sussex cried herself to sleep while pregnant, he's accused of attention-seeking, oversharing, whining, playing the victim. Excuse me, but how did grieving become a PR test? Why is one brother's pain seen as presidential while the other's is packaged as problematic? It's like there's a memo circulating in the royal press pool that says only William gets to mourn Diana in public. Harry must suffer in silence, or better yet, off camera. And heaven forbid Harry mentions his mother in an interview. The same press that canonizes Diana will turn around and scream, "How dare he weaponize her memory?" Meanwhile, William can name an entire initiative after her, pose stoically beside a statue, and the same papers weep right alongside him. Here's the truth they don't want to admit. Harry's grief is real, raw, inconvenient. It forces people to reckon with the fact that this perfect palace fairy tale is built on generational trauma and emotional neglect. His pain doesn't fit in the royal mould because it's not curated for optics. It's lived. And because Harry refuses to cry behind palace curtains or wait for a press release to feel something he's labelled the rebel, the runaway, the ungrateful son, all because he chose healing over hiding. Let's also not ignore how race plays a role here too. When Meghan Sussex opened up about suicidal ideation, when she showed emotion, it was branded manipulative, calculated. The British press practically foamed at the mouth trying to discredit her. But when Kate gets misty-eyed over a children's charity, it's pure elegance, the image of maternal strength. See the pattern? Apparently you're only allowed to cry in the palace if it's behind closed doors and with palace approval. Bonus points if you're white, stoic, and keep the family secrets sealed under centuries of emotional repression. This double standard is exactly why Harry walked away. Not because he doesn't care, but because he cared enough not to pretend anymore. He grieves in the open because he was silenced for too long. He speaks because no one else would. He chooses authenticity, even when it costs him everything. And honestly, that's not weakness. That's strength, the kind Diana would have been proud of. So the next time the media praises William for saying Diana's name, but mocks Harry for doing the same, ask yourself this. Why is vulnerability only applauded when it's royal approved and wrapped in Buckingham branding? Because if grief is only valid when it matches the dress code, then the firm doesn't honour Diana's memory. It merely exploits it. If you loved this breakdown and want to keep supporting this channel, where truth matters more than titles, don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, and hit that super thanks to support the work. Until next time, remember, some legacies are built on truth, not titles, and some crowns don't need a palace to shine.